Right, I think we're recording. Welcome everyone to episode 12 of Parkour Coach Companion with me, Sam Kopak. And today I have Posy Brown with me as a guest. So if you are listening to this on Spotify, you may also watch this on YouTube. So you can go and check out Parkour Coach Companion on YouTube. Otherwise, carry on listening. And hope you enjoy the episode. So welcome, Posy.
Thank you, Sam.
Good to
I feel
have you.
very honoured and happy to be here.
Cool. Have you done a podcast before?
I haven't actually, and do you know what? I listen to so many podcasts. I listen to like about 3 a week, so I'm a bit of a podcast fiend. So it feels a bit weird to be on the other end of it.
Yeah, I imagine. Do you listen to parkour podcasts or just other ones?
Not really. The one that I do quite like is the Movers Mindset one.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't listened to that for a while, but that's got some really good parkour people on it. But I haven't listened to any of the other ones. I tend to listen to more the kind of personal development, health kind of podcasts. I like those ones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's only a few parkour podcasts. Some of them are a bit hit and miss for me. Some of them are there's a mixture between quite serious conversation and then literally not much, like just kind of chatting shit really, and not much happening. But I guess it's nice to have the best of both worlds. But for those that are new listening, if you're new listening to this one, this is really about connecting coaches and connecting practitioners to coaches as well, because I feel like we need to have a bit more of a dialogue together, try and connect with each other a bit more. So on that note, Posy, first question, where are you in your coaching journey? Because I think you're slightly different in that you're more towards the beginning.
I am definitely towards the beginning. So, I guess that might be quite an interesting perspective for some of the people listening to this.
Yeah.
So I completed my level 1. Well, I actually did the course last year, and then I completed it, kind of the 10 sessions that you have to do afterwards this year. And then I've just started assisting a women's introduction to parkour course at the Chainstore Gym in London. So that's a 6-week course, couple of hours on a Saturday night, and we're middle of the way through it at the moment. So Natalie, my friend, she's the lead coach for it. So I'm doing it alongside with her. So it's really fun so far. And it's a really good way for me to start coaching because it's where I feel most comfortable and it's where I feel most passionate. And when I was asked to do it by Barbara, who kind of runs the show behind the scenes at Parkour Generations, I really kind of leaped at the opportunity because that's kind of, what I really love doing.
Cool.
I mean, I've helped out in a few jams and things like that over the past few months with She Can Trace, but it's been a bit inconsistent, and I guess my journey into coaching has been quite opportunistic. So it's more like the opportunities have come to me and I've taken them rather than actively trying to be a parkour coach.
And how did you find doing your hours then?
It was quite straightforward for me because I am quite grateful for the fact I live in London and we have lots of different people doing parkour here in different organisations and lots of level 2 coaches. So it was quite easy for me to kind of contact them and get the signings, and I'm quite thankful for that, because I know it could be quite a bit of a challenge if you weren't in an area where there were kind of a selection of level 2 coaches that you could do your hours with, whereas I was quite lucky with that.
I guess you've got a good crop of coaches in London. It's probably the best place really. And so with just starting coaching, is it something that you imagine yourself doing, or is it something that kind of you've grown to enjoy, or something that you want to move more into, like as a job, like a full-time job, or?
Yeah, so no, I never imagined myself coaching. My kind of, I guess my movement background is yoga, and I have done a yoga teacher training course, but I'm not a yoga teacher. That was much more for myself. And I've always been a little bit nervous of trying it. I think everyone is, but I'm also quite happy for it to just be the thing that I enjoy doing, and I don't have particular aims at this point in my life to suddenly become a teacher of yoga, especially. It's not, that is maybe something I'd like to do in the future though. But with parkour, it's more that I do feel as though finally I have something to offer to new students of parkour, and specifically women, because that is where I started. So I've been doing parkour for around 5 years now. Just a little over 5 years. And I think everyone says this, but it has literally changed my life. And yeah, it feels like something that I feel like I want to share with other people. And there's just not many other people doing it like me. So there's not many female coaches. And there's not many people who, I guess there's a lot of people who are really good at parkour, and they want to do it maybe in terms of being an athlete or a performer or something to do with the movement, but that doesn't necessarily translate into being a good coach. And I feel like I really want to share my coaching with people who are similar to me, and by that I mean people who didn't have a background in anything movement, maybe started, I hate to say this, but started parkour late in life. I mean, I was 25, so it's not exactly old, but by parkour standards, that is maybe a bit old. And in a way it was, because previous to starting parkour, I was basically doing a few runs here and there, a little bit of yoga. I was abusing my body with all sorts of naughty things. Like I told you, I lived in Leeds beforehand, so you might know what the party scene is like there. And I lived quite a kind of, I guess, like standard middle class upbringing, where academia was valued over movement, and I wasn't surrounded by a kind of movement lifestyle. So when I first discovered parkour, I was very scared of everything, like everyone is, but also just physically weak, and I just didn't know how to move my body at all. So that's quite a long answer to your question.
Yeah, that's a great
but I guess that's the kind of thing that drives me to want to coach people now. It's enabling people that don't necessarily have too much of a movement background, or don't feel comfortable with kind of their strength, and just kind of making them aware of the capabilities of what they can do.
Yeah, interesting. So you feel in a way that in parkour helps you kind of develop as a person. You kind of feel like you want to help other people do that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think because it is still obviously such a relatively young discipline, and there aren't loads of practitioners as there are in comparison to other things such as yoga or climbing or other things that people enjoy doing, it does feel like there is more of a kind of niche and an opportunity for someone like me to actually be of service and be of kind of help to other people. And I guess over the past 5 years, I have been training quite consistently and going to classes a lot and going to events and meeting lots of different people. So I do feel quite immersed in some way, and I think again that puts me in a unique position that I can then kind of share with other people.
Mm. I mean, yeah, you're in the niche, aren't you? It's not just parkour, but it's women in parkour, which is uh, a small minority, really. And so, what advice would you give for coaches who are just starting a bit like yourself, or are thinking of getting into coaching? What sort of things have you learned that are helpful?
So I guess my first thought is like always come from a place of being humble and not being arrogant or cocky. But then I kind of think actually like I've never been like that. So that's not a very honest answer. And really the thing that probably helped me is just actually being confident in my ability. So I'll go through phases, like I'm sure everyone does, of very much having a kind of imposter syndrome perspective on things, of being like, how can anyone think that they can be coached by me, because I've only been doing this for a few years and there's certain things that I can't even do, and all of the kind of worries that I think lots of people have. But really sort of once I have been coaching with kind of beginner women, I've realized that actually I do have a lot of knowledge that I wasn't necessarily even aware that I had. And I do kind of understand more than I thought I did. And that's kind of given me confidence with being able to share that with other people. And also I love the idea of just sharing that parkour is so much more than movement. It's so much more than just doing a jump or doing some kind of vault. I love like sharing the potential of it, and also all of the different values, and just being able to open people's minds to kind of like the parkour eye. I guess people that are listening can't see me with the inverted quotes, but just seeing the environment in a different way. And I really like the kind of physical training aspect of things as well. So getting stronger, kind of the physical challenges that turn into a bit of a mental challenge. Those are all parts of parkour which feel quite unique to parkour, and that I feel very kind of passionate about, and that I want to kind of convey with other people that that's what parkour is also about.
Cool. Yeah, I was just thinking whilst you were saying that when you do parkour, there is a lot that you absorb. There's a lot of knowledge that you absorb about how to move, how to interact with different objects, how to negotiate different environments, and you do actually learn a lot that kind of becomes absorbed. And actually, that in speech that doesn't really come out until you start coaching. And I sometimes find myself coming out with loads of stuff that I've never really said, I've never really externalized, if that's the right word, or verbalized before, but it comes out in coaching because it's just you're then trying to pass on that knowledge. But yeah, you learn a hell of a lot, like just practicing parkour, and it's then interesting to take it on to coaching. And so, what would you say to male coaches who maybe have some little girls in their class, or older women who are wanting to get into parkour? What advice would you give to them about how to run those sessions, if they are running those sessions and it's not already a female coach running them?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's a tricky one, because I can't kind of help but answer it without sort of applying that to everyone, not just to women.
Yeah.
So really just having patience and no assumptions in terms of how they are going to respond to things is really I guess the building blocks for everything else. So I have obviously witnessed lots of different women and girls over the years that I've trained with and been in classes with, and I have just seen like a huge variety in terms of their ability to do things like it goes without saying that there's loads of girls that come that are just like awesome straight away from the first session. Like they're really, really strong. They're really, really confident. So just, assuming that all girls are kind of going to have less of a physical ability than men is probably not a good place to start. But yeah, in terms of for the coaches, I've always had very, very, very positive experiences with the coaches that have trained me, and they've always been great at dealing with all sorts of different people. The thing that I guess can be a challenge as a woman in group class scenarios is that it's normally the other students. Often they have good intentions, but they can be the ones that will put off females within a class scenario. So from a male coach perspective, I would kind of advise kind of managing that aspect is just as important as the attention and kind of dedication that you would give to all students in your class, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I've definitely lost girls in my class due to the other boys being disruptive or treating them differently or not giving them the space that they want to do in coming into their first lesson or whatever. And it's such a shame because I have to try and manage it as best I can, but sometimes it's difficult when, say, there's 2 girls and 10, noisy boys or something like that. It can be quite challenging. But I think, yeah, I agree. The onus should be on the coach to manage the behaviour really and help the direction of the whole class. So yeah.
I mean, also I've had, and from a lot of my female friends, we will get told by students in the class how we should be moving. That number one, I don't believe other students should be telling them how we should move, but also often it's just been wrong. Like they've literally just been giving wrong advice, and I'm aware of that because I have more experience than them. And it can be kind of funny and amusing, and I can just let it go because now I do have that confidence. But if I had had that in the first year or two, I think it would have really had an impact on my confidence. And you never know what's happening with someone's mental state in a particular day or a particular time period. So those things can be harmless, but they can actually have quite a big impact, I believe, on kind of someone's confidence.
And tell us a bit about She Can Trace and the Women's International Weekend, because I believe you've been to a few of those, or?
Yeah, so Women's International Parkour Weekend, I think I went to my first one probably 5 years ago, maybe 4. I think I missed the first one, so maybe it was 4 years ago. And that was led at the time by the mighty Shirley Darlington Roat, who's like pretty much my idol. And she led her and Naomi Honey led the women's classes at the time. So these events are quite special, and they're quite magical to me, and they're the kind of thing I look forward to every year. Unfortunately, it was obviously cancelled this year. And I was trying to think, like, what is it that's so unique about these events? And it's really hard to put my finger on it because it is something as intangible as just like the energy is different. So really, you just have the best time all weekend. And I would come out of at the end of each day just feeling like this huge natural high, just feeling like totally elated after spending the whole day training, doing parkour, meeting new people, and just having the best time. And yeah, it's hard to say why that happens in a women's only environment, but for me, it does feel quite unique, and I have only experienced that at the women's only events that I have taken part in. And that's not to say like I don't enjoy all the other events, like I really, really do. I enjoy kind of training with guys as well, but there's just something quite unique about the women's only events that I can't explain it.
I've seen a few videos, and I do enjoy seeing what goes on there. It seems like they're very, very well planned, because I mean you get some huge numbers, right? Like over 100 people at least. Maybe?
I think there's normally around sort of 60, 50.
Oh, okay, maybe
Yeah.
exaggerate.
Yeah, but I mean that's still a good amount.
Yeah, for sure.
And I will, at those events as well, there'll be people that travel specifically for those events who don't live in London, but also they just come specifically for that event. So they're really nice to see people that you've not seen in a year and catch up and meet lots of different people. And it does also highlight that there are women out there that don't train with other people and with men, and do just come to these events. So that's quite interesting as well.
And so this year, has it been cancelled this year?
It was cancelled, yeah. I think it was supposed to be in May.
Oh, okay. But I guess it'll be back on board hopefully next year.
Yeah, I hope so. And I didn't mention about She Can Trace as well. So that again was an initiative that was started. I think I'm right in saying this, that Shirley started it as a kind of side limb to Parkour Generations. And I'm probably going to get this wrong in terms of what the purpose of it is, but the purpose of it is to kind of inspire more women to try out parkour, stay training parkour, kind of not give it up after they've tried it for a few weeks, and just to connect the female community. Sure, there's a much more articulate way of saying it, but that's kind of what it's like, and it fluctuates. So I know there's like an Instagram account, and they'll post things, and we went through a phase of organizing jams as well to get kind of female only jams, but yeah, we'll bring that back. That was actually my aim this year, was to bring that back. So maybe after the women's parkour course weekend, I'll start doing it again.
And so this 6 week, you say it was 6 weeks, the introduction thing is, and so how is that planned, and how is that kind of structured? Are you doing it with other coaches as well, or?
Yeah, so to be honest, I have not done any of the planning.
I'll cut that bit out.
It's organised by through Parkour Generations, and then Natalie, who's the lead coach, she's sort of planned most of the sessions because she's done it once before, and then I'm helping her deliver them. But how it's kind of structured is that we'll have kind of quite a long warm up, half an hour or so, where we do all sorts of different parkour style warm ups, and then 2 technical stations, 2 routes, and then something at the end to bring it together. So quite a kind of I guess standard way of structuring a class, but the aim is to expose them to as much of the parkour movement as possible, and to get them feeling more confident with themselves. It's held indoors at the chain store, but we will be having one session outside as well, just so they can be introduced to real parkour. And yeah, really fun.
And so you'll kind of be assisting them and just helping managing the class?
Yeah, so I will be providing feedback and I'm helping Natalie kind of assist in the warm-up, and then I'll be leading one of the technical stations, sort of sharing the different techniques, and then maybe leading a cool down or a conditioning or something like that.
Cool. My next question is, can you talk through or remember an example of when you were coached a certain movement and it was really helpful? So someone, you maybe you were struggling with something, or maybe you were learning something new, and a coach really helped you with a certain movement.
Mm-hmm. This is hard for me to think of right now. I can think of I can think of one or two examples, and I think they all actually boil down to the fact that coach had really good patience. So as I kind of explained earlier on, like, I don't have a particular movement background. It takes me a long time to get stuff, which I'm okay with, but I just need the time. So when I first started parkour, I was terrible at balancing. Like, I couldn't balance at all. And I've got this memory etched in my brain of being in Kilburn, and there was a balance challenge, which wasn't really a balance challenge because it was literally just walking on top of a wall, as in, like, the wall was wider than my foot, and I still couldn't do that. That was like a challenge for me, and I just couldn't understand balancing at all. And then I went to a class, was one of the women's only classes back in the day, with Shirley, and I think I was the only person there, which is always a bit daunting as a student when you turn up and there's no other people for you to hide with. So I almost ended up having a one-on-one session with her, and we did balance, and it was actually a particularly tricky balance in some ways. You know, those rails which are kind of got like a pointy top to them. They're not a round rail, they're almost like got a triangle, so the bit that you balance on is very, very thin, and we just spent ages there, just on this small rail, and eventually I got it, and that was something that really clicked for me, and then I could balance relatively easy after that, and I love balancing now. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I think the only thing that really helped was just the fact that I had time to do it. And that kind of led me to think that often the class environment doesn't always make it easy to get particular movements, because you'll spend maybe 15 minutes on one technique, and then move on to something else. And for some people, that's simply not enough time in order to get something and feel comfortable with it. So yeah, that's one example that sprung to mind. But more broadly as well, it's the coaches that I've had have, I get to know them, and it's almost patience over a long period of time. So obviously a very parkour and tricky movement that lots of people struggle with is the cat pass, and that took me years to get. And I think lots of different coaches helped me with that. Eventually, Flynn Disney, he kind of provided the essential cues that I needed in order to finally get it, and kind of that calm, comfortable, familiar environment that made me feel like I was able to do it. So yeah, those are my examples.
Yeah, shout out to Flynn. Have interviewed him here actually. If listeners don't know, actually, I interviewed Flynn as one of my first interviewees in London, and there's a full video talking to him, which we did maybe a couple of years ago now. That's on this channel. But I do want to get him on again, because he seems to be going from strength to strength with his kind of this huge knowledge of movement and and how to progress and how to stay safe while doing so. So apparently he is working on this kind of method or approach that he's pulling all these things together. And I messaged him recently saying that it'd be good to have him on so we can do like a big 2 hour episode or something, and he can just present all his stuff, because it seems like he's doing some really good work, especially with adults getting into parkour. So yeah, big shout out to Flynn, and of course Shirley, who I've never met her, but I can feel the presence from her and Chris just over the years, which I guess says something, seeing as I've never really met them both. So yeah, shouts to those guys. And yeah, so the next question I had, is this actually a good question? I don't know. So imagine if hey,
We'll find out.
we'll find out. So imagine if tomorrow all classes were split by gender. Do you think that this would help help women in parkour develop and grow more than it is now?
Short answer, no. Because that would obviously be a very extreme approach. So I guess something that we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but one of my sort of gripes with the whole women in parkour debate is that there aren't enough female role models, and parkour female role models, and I personally feel like there are so many, and they're quite easy to find, and they make amazing content. And yes, there's not as many females as there are men, but they are out there, and there's lots, there's many that you can be inspired by. Where I think there really lacks that female influence is actually more for people starting parkour, and people that need to be inspired and influenced by someone that isn't making a professional career out of parkour. I'm going in a really roundabout way of saying this, but yeah, I guess my introduction to parkour, and the reason that I only ever started, was because I saw someone moving who didn't look too far removed from me and where I was at the time. Like I actually saw a performance, and it was a woman moving, and she just looked like a very like average person in a way. Like she wasn't this amazing athlete doing huge flips. I mean, obviously she can move very, very well, but it wasn't kind of like I could see how I could get there in a way. And to me, that has always been the most inspiring kind of people to make me continue doing parkour and to make me kind of continue moving. As much as I love seeing all of like the women who are top of the game and doing amazing stuff, I personally don't feel inspired by them, in the sense that they don't make me want to go out and do parkour. And I feel like there is space for more women who aren't top level athletes to move and to have more exposure for that. And this is a really roundabout way of saying women's only classes would provide a space for doing that. And so whilst I don't think all classes should suddenly be split, that would be ridiculous and that would never work, but to have women's only classes definitely provides a space for people to just feel more comfortable and explore their potential. And it's not like a women's only class is going to be any easier or any kind of less scary than one with guys in. It's just that it's simply a different atmosphere. That's the only way I can kind of describe it. So no, I don't think that all classes should suddenly be split by gender. But yes, I do feel in some cases there's definitely a space for women's only classes, as well as the mixed gender classes.
Cool. And last point on this before we look at more of your own training. I just wanted to give a shout to a guy called Angus Uren, who I think is from down south, and he sent me a video to watch called "Is Parkour Sexist?" a video essay. I don't know whether you've seen it, Posy, but it's actually really well made. I was really impressed. It's kind of like a long kind of 16-minute piece. He's clearly put a lot of effort in, and I think he either interviewed or did some questionnaires with, I think, about 35 female practitioners, and just getting a lot of feedback from them about their experience with parkour and their experience with training with men and how they feel, and it was really well made. I'd recommend it to people listening. It's on YouTube now. So I think it's just called "Is Parkour Sexist?" a video essay, and he's clearly put a lot of time into it. It wasn't kind of like a ramshackle, just random, talking heads thing. It was like it was fully scripted and really nicely presented. So shouts to Angus, and thanks for supporting the podcast as well. Cool. So let's go on to your own training now. I noticed on your Insta page that you're a fan of training in more natural environments, and so why is that, and where do you find these places?
I'm very lucky that I live near a big nature place, Hampstead Heath, so I can quite easily access that. And for me, training there it's normally I go there with absolutely no expectations. It's very spontaneous, and it's where I will just intuitively move. So it's not really training. It's just kind of expressing. I imagine I would try. An analogy might be like if I was a dancer and I did dance training, it's the equivalent of if you're a dancer and your favorite tune just comes on and you just move however you want to move. So for me, being in nature somehow enables that to happen through movement. For me, it's really, I don't know, it's really a kind of celebration of what I can do, rather than I'll never go there kind of thinking, okay, I really need to train this particular movement today or whatever. It's not about that at all. It's about sort of just feeding my soul through being in the outdoor environment. And I normally go on my own. Through lockdown a little bit, my boyfriend was living here and we would go up there and train together a bit, and that was great as well. But yeah, normally it's just time for me to kind of decompress, just feel super grateful for all of the things that I can do. Like almost every day I will check in with myself and the progress that I have made, because I'm actually very proud of myself and all of the training that I have done over the past 5 years, and all of the decisions that I've made, and all of the kind of work and dedication that I have put in order to improving myself physically and mentally. And I think a lot of people do those things and they don't, they're not proud of themselves. They still kind of think, oh no, I still need to get better, and I'm not a good enough person, and I haven't done these things. And I don't know, maybe it comes with a bit more age, but I think like, no, I can do like 10 pull-ups now. Like that's super amazing. Like most people can't do that, and it's taken a lot of work to get there. And so that's all of the kind of the consistency and the dedication work that happens. But when I go out and I train on my own in nature, it's simply just about like feeling great in the body that I'm in.
Yeah, I have thought about this as well recently. A couple of people who I train with, I've seen I've had to ask myself, are they enjoying this? Like, are they actually enjoying the session? Because, and some really high level people that I've been training with, there's been a couple of occasions where, yeah, I've seen them working on something very difficult, and they eventually get it, and you see kind of a brief moment of joy and elation, and then straight away it's kind of, they kind of go a bit sullen, and then they're looking for something straight away to try. And obviously they're looking for progression, they're looking to push themselves. But yeah, I think you're right in that there's a huge, there should be a huge sense of kind of gratitude and self appreciation, um, for overcoming everything that we do overcome in parkour, and especially in such a niche sport, and with a lot of people, not really understanding what we're doing, and we, get quite a lot of stick for it maybe, or hassle or whatever, and then pushing through that and actually realizing that, yeah, you can do quite incredible things. Should absolutely be celebrated, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? It's like money doesn't buy you happiness, or having a fancy car or a house isn't going to buy you happiness. And it's equally, if you get that jump, it's not necessarily going to bring you happiness, but the journey to get there is. And I think that's such a cliche that everyone hears almost every day, like, oh, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But I don't think people necessarily actually really embody that and take note of that. They like the idea of it, but do they actually live that reality? I see many people that possibly don't.
It was interesting in the Kasturi episode that I did, and she said that her training sessions these days are more neutral. And at first I wasn't quite sure what she meant, but I like that idea now, and I come back to that thought in my head whilst I'm training, because it's easy to have these big swinging highs and lows with training, and I think it can come down to something as simple as, for a lot of people, myself included, if I don't do something that I'm happy with, or if I don't do something new, then it's a shit session. And you can see that from people. You say to them, "Oh, how's your training going?" or whatever, and say, "Oh, had a bad day today," or something. It's because they've not reached the expectation that they've put for themselves. So I like the idea of a kind of a neutral kind of feeling, so that even when you do complete things, you're happy and you're kind of proud of yourself, but also you don't go too overboard with that. I think you can see people get too gassed and too hyped about what they're doing as well, and they try and do more, and then they get injured, and then they're out for 3 months, and then they're miserable. So I think I like the idea of being quite level. It's something that I've been thinking with my own practice. And so you also do, now forgive me, Budokon?
Budokon.
Budokon, oh dear.
Budokon.
Yeah, I've never heard of this before, but it's a type of yoga, right?
So it's a mixed, what do they call it? A mixed movement art.
Mixed movement art.
Yeah, and it's developed by this superpower couple, Cameron and Melaine Shane. Okay. And it's a mix of yoga, calisthenics, animal locomotion, martial arts, and just movement in general. And I got into that the start of this year, and this year I've basically become quite obsessed with it, and I really, really enjoy it. And I guess the yoga part of it and the animal locomotion part, which is obviously lots of quadrupedal type of movement, which I absolutely love. That's the part of it that comes quite naturally to me. And then combining that with martial arts is something totally brand new for me. I don't have any kind of background in martial arts whatsoever. but I'm sort of starting to realize that this is something that I'm quite interested in, and it kind of speaks to me. So and also it's that thing of just like, I love the way that they move, just seeing the way that they move. It's kind of like, oh, I want to do that. I want to be able to do that. So yeah, it's quite a new thing, I guess. The guy Cameron Shane he's been a mover his whole life, and Budokon, I think, has been around for about 10 years. But it is just this style that is those two do, but they draw on lots and lots of different movement styles whilst they're doing it. And that has led me to start in the past few weeks Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is totally out of my comfort zone. So the Budokon has got a lot of jiu-jitsu inspired movements in it. I now realize, having been to a few jiu-jitsu classes, and that this has been something very, very interesting for me in the past three weeks, because I am very much back to that complete beginner's mindset of something that's totally alien to me, and I feel like so clumsy whilst I'm doing it, but I'm really enjoying kind of that new challenge of doing something completely different. And this time around, having had all my parkour coaching experience, as in being coached, I feel like I'm being a much better student now at learning something new than I wouldn't have been if I hadn't have got my parkour experience. So I feel like I go there like just so eager to learn, and I'm a complete sponge, and I want to learn as much as possible, but at the same time I kind of really respect that it's going to take me years and years and years before I probably feel like, oh, I can kind of get it. And on that note as well, I think one of the reasons it's kind of resonated with me as a movement style is because of that element of combat with another person, and kind of, I guess, fighting, which is not something that I have ever experienced before. And it does feel almost like a fundamental part of human movement and human interaction. That's almost been missing in my life so far. So in that ways, it's very, very intriguing to me, and I just, yeah, I'm feeling quite like excited by it at this stage.
Yeah, I had some experience of starting wrestling and jiu-jitsu over the last couple of years, and I definitely felt that same beginner's mind kind of excitement, of learning things kind of afresh. And one thing that I really noticed with combat movement is how for me at least, it forces you into that flow state. Because if you're in that situation where someone is trying to get a handle on you or overpower you, there isn't any time to think through what you're going to do next, essentially, or very little time. And because of that, because you can't hesitate that much, I found that I was really getting completely lost in the movement itself, because I was so attuned and was being forced into the moment, if that makes sense. I was being forced to react. And so yeah, for anyone, I guess, listening that's interested in flow state stuff that we do get in parkour, I'd say, as well, of course, then yeah, there's some cool experiences in mixed martial arts and things like that. So
kind of to tie that back with some of our earlier conversations, is that it's always intimidating going to a new place or doing something new, but going to a jiu-jitsu class where there are I think there were 14 other guys and a male coach, and I was the only woman, naturally I'm going to feel like the odd one out. And I've definitely got quite a good armor on me. Like I'm quite resilient to these things now because I have been exposed to it so much and I'm so used to it. Like I'm used to being the only woman in the weights section of a gym. And it's something that I'm acutely aware of. And I feel quite confident now because I know that no one is going to judge me. And the coach, if he's a good coach, he would know how to kind of deal with me. But I can't help but have that kind of feeling in my stomach and in my chest of like, I'm the only woman here. It's a feeling that I'm sure lots of other women can relate with. It's not kind of anything bad or anything, but it's just that feeling of slight discomfort that you get in a situation like that. And I don't want to make any kind of claims or I don't know opinions yet on jiu-jitsu because I'm so new to it, but it's something that I'm very curious to discover over the next few months and years. It's just women in that particular sport, because it seems to me even kind of worse than women in parkour. And so that's why I don't want to make any assumptions, because again I've seen lots of amazing female jiu-jitsu athletes and coaches at the place that I've started going at, but there seems to be even the balance in terms of the practitioners seems to be even more weighted in terms of men versus women. So, and I probably think if I had started that 5 years ago instead of parkour, I mean, I wouldn't have lasted beyond the first session. Whilst there does seem to be this kind of problem of women in parkour, I think there's other things that are much worse.
Interesting. Yeah, and so moving forward then with your parkour practice and your coaching career potentially, is it something that for example, are you looking to do your level 2 or other kind of, because I know that there's other kind of little courses now, isn't there? Like there's one coming up, I think, that's for teaching elderly people. Is that right?
I think there might be, yeah. I guess I just have to decide what it is that I want. So for me, at this stage of my life, I don't have any particular aims or ambitions to make being a parkour coach my full-time career. I understand the challenges of that in terms of it being your career. And also, I just don't think it's naturally where my strengths lie as a person. I really enjoy one-on-one scenarios and kind of small groups of people, but when it comes to leading big groups and big classes, I can do it. I'm quite good at faking confidence, but I guess I see so many amazing coaches and I'm so like in awe and humbled by how amazing they are that I think, oh my gosh, that's just not me. Like I'm never going to be as good as that. And that's not like a fear that I think is holding me back. I think that is a genuine kind of truth. I just think it's not the thing for me, but that's not to say I can't continue coaching in a different capacity. So I'm definitely interested in doing more one-on-one things and with smaller groups and people at the start of learning parkour. So we'll see what happens. Definitely my passion is with the female parkour community, and specifically women who are maybe slightly older or aren't particularly physically strong, or they have lots of other things going on. So it can be quite all-consuming. And in a way, if you want to improve or progress, you have to make choices in your life that will enable you to do that. And by that I mean kind of eating a certain way and kind of taking negative things out of your life, dedicating your social time to doing it. And it can be quite hard to do all of those things if you've got loads of other things going on in your life, and I'm quite aware of that. So parkour is a huge part of my life, but 95% of my friends are not parkour friends, and I have a normal kind of full-time job, and it's very much, parkour is something that I have to fit around everything else, but obviously it can be done. And I think sharing that with people like me is something that where I feel like I can be of benefit to others.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we are getting close to the end now. So that was a nice spiel to finish on. Is there any shout outs or anything else you'd like to mention before we leave?
Shout outs, I guess. Obviously I can't help but think like women that have inspired me in parkour. And I've mentioned Shirley a few times, so I'll stop fangirling her, or that'll get a little bit weird. But truly, sort of Shirley and Naomi at the start were very, very inspirational to me. But really the ones that do inspire me the most is just my female friends that I see and that I know and that I am kind of comfortable around. So those are always the ones that you can kind of get to know are the ones that I feel most inspired by. And specifically those women who have done the unique woman thing of being pregnant and having a baby, and then post-pregnancy continuing doing parkour and movement. So obviously Shirley and Kasturi are good examples of that. And I'll always be inspired by them, and just kind of, I love that they, in their own different ways, have kind of tracked their progress a bit and shared it to an extent with others, because I think they are in such a unique position as women who train parkour that have also been through kind of pregnancy and giving birth and having a baby. And to me, like, those things are very, very inspiring.
Lovely. Cool. Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening or watching. All the links to Posy's stuff will be either above on Spotify or below on YouTube. So go and check out what she's doing. And yeah, I hope the women's course goes well. It sounds like a good project.
Thank you. It is going well so far. I hope they're all enjoying themselves. They keep coming back, so that's a good sign.
Yes, yeah. Cool. Okay, so if you're listening on Spotify, you can just roll over to the next episode magically, and you can listen to episode 11, which was with Lu Wong, who is a coach and practitioner with Esprit Concrete, another coaching organisation in the UK. But yeah, from me, thank you very much, Posy. I really enjoyed listening to your perspectives on a lot of things. That was really good. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. It was really fun. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.